Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope you're having a lovely Friday morning. Today I'd like to follow up on that video I did yesterday on Zero Motorcycles and their Cypher store. We were discussing how when you buy this $20,000 motorcycle and you've already paid for the battery, that if you want to actually access the entire battery, you have to give them more money. Where when you buy this bike and you've paid for fast charging circuitry and hardware to be installed in it, that if you actually want to use it, you have to pay them more money. Where if you want the ability to slowly creep forward and backwards on the motorcycle, where you've paid for the motor, paid for the motor controller, paid for all the hardware for it to go back and forth, paid for the drivetrain, that you need to give them more money. And there were certain comments in that video from people that were critical of me, criticizing Zero for this, saying, listen, they're a new company, maybe they haven't made all their money back on their initial investment, electric vehicles are a very niche industry, so there's a lot of research that goes into it, they need, again, $20,000, it's not like it's a $200,000 car, they need to make their money back somehow, so that even if you don't particularly like it, this is not some sort of anti-ownership thing, that's nothing like that at all, it's simply they just need to make their money back because they're in a niche field. So I thought I'd give you a better example from what is not a niche field with a company that is selling a product that I don't think anybody in my comment section could ever argue is a loss leader. A loss leader is a product that you sell to try to get people in the door in the hopes they'll buy something else. You may have a store with some fancy stuff in the window going for really cheap. The business doesn't really make money on it, but they hope that you buy something else once you're actually in the store. I used to have loss leaders for my supply company back in the day, and admittedly, it was part of the reason that supply company went bankrupt. As my friend's late mother from Knoxville, Tennessee used to say, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. Should have listened to her a lot sooner. Anyway, going back to this, let's talk about the Mercedes S-Class. This is a vehicle that goes anywhere from $100,000, $110,000. If you want one that's higher powered, maybe $120,000, $130,000. If you want it with all the advanced features in it, you may pay up to $150,000 for the highest trim. It's not a vehicle that I think most people would describe as a loss leader. This is not, this is not a Ford Fiesta or something. It's not something that's being sold at a lower profit margin in the hopes that maybe you'll come back and buy a Ford F-150 or something else. This is a vehicle where they're making some good money when you buy it. And they are doing something very interesting, which is they have something called rear wheel steering. So instead of you only being able to turn like this, maybe you'll be able to turn like this at steeper angles as a result of both the front wheels and the rear wheels moving when you steer the vehicle, which is a cool feature. I've never used this feature before. I've never seen it. I've heard of other cars having it in the past, but admittedly, this is just not something that you see in your Walgreens parking lot when somebody's, leaving the pharmacy. It's just not something that is common. So it's kind of cool to see cars that have this feature. The thing is, if you want to use it, you have to give them over $500 a year. Not even like Zero, where you're paying up front once $200. You have to give them $500 a year. The hardware is already in the car. It's already there. When you bought the car, you bought all of this hardware. But if you want to unlock this feature, you're going to pay over $500 a year. And again, we're not talking about a vehicle where they need to recoup the fact that they gave it to you at a low upfront cost. This is not something like we need to charge you a lot of money every month for your cell phone plan because we're subsidizing the fact that we gave you this smartphone for $200 when it actually cost us $600. This is a $110,000 luxury car. There's good profit in that vehicle. And there's a comment on a YouTube video that really just kind of described this to me perfectly. I think it describes the situation. The channel is Driven Media. You should all check out this channel. There's a lot of cool car stuff on it. And the comment that I liked the most came from Matt Bolt. I actually should give it a like because I did like this comment. A subscription to 10 degrees of steering has to be the saddest thing I've ever heard of in my life. LOL. And that's exactly what I thought when I read this. A subscription to get 10 degrees more steering is one of the saddest things. Now, one of the things that you may be thinking is, Lewis, what do you care? You're never going to drive a Mercedes S-Class. Even if you had the money for one of these things to just give it away, you're never going to fucking buy a $130,000 car. You're a cheapskate. You don't care about rear wheel steering, so why are you even complaining about this? And good point. Not only again, the most I've ever spent on a car in my life is low 40s, and even that made me feel quite guilty because I am indeed a cheapskate. And your average demographic in my audience, even the people in my comment section that are independently wealthy, tend to be the type of people that are independently wealthy because the life decisions they make are running their 1997 Honda Civic into the ground with 400,000 miles and taking pride in it. People in my comment section, let's face it, like 99% of you, you're just not, I read my comments, you're not the type of person spending $130,000 on a brand new luxury vehicle with a fucking subscription service. Why does this matter? Well, because everybody else is going to copy it if they get away with it. If Mercedes is able to get away with this as a well-renowned car company that makes good money, good profits, that has vehicles that people want to buy, if they see a bunch of people go for this, then they'll send the message to everybody else that you could do the exact same thing. I remember back in 2007 and 2008 going, wait a second, Apple is selling a phone that's about $600 or $700 and the battery is sealed into the phone. They don't offer battery replacements and they don't offer battery replacement repairs in the store. They just replace the entire device. What? That's insane. And when I said that, everybody said, why do you care? You don't use Apple products anyway. Just buy something else. And well, fast forward 15 years, how many modern flagship smartphones have a user replaceable battery? How many modern smartphones are even being sold by a company that will sell you the battery, even if you are willing to take a heat gun and a heat plate and mess with the thing to rip it off and not crack it or destroy something while you're doing that? How many companies will sell you the battery? Because we went over this recently. Samsung is announcing a repair program where you're not even able to buy a battery. You can only buy the battery attached to a $300 or $400 screen, which again is just so tone deaf. When you have phones that are worth $400 in the used market and they're going to sell you a $350 screen with a battery attached to it. Thanks. But really, when one company gets away with a practice like this, and if they are a successful and profitable company, it tends to trickle down to everything else. Now, even lower-end phones don't have user-replaceable batteries and are often coming from companies that will not sell you one. So you're forced to buy a knockoff from somewhere that may not be as good because you can't get the original. Remember the days when you just be able to go to a Verizon store and buy a battery to a BlackBerry that was actually OEM? Maybe a little expensive, but it was actually real, like you knew you were getting a good thing. Those are the days. If this happens here, maybe this will happen with everything else. Maybe it'll go down to the E-Class, then the C-Class, then maybe, once these subscription services become popular with Mercedes, maybe it'll happen with Lexus. Then it'll happen with a Toyota Avalon, then a Toyota Corolla and a Camry, then a Honda Civic and Accord, then a Nissan Sentra, and then everything else. And that'll be another thing that we're just expected to deal with. When I talk about the concept of having a phone where you can either A, buy a replacement battery that you know is OEM from the manufacturer, or B, it's easy to replace it yourself, you'll see on forums across the internet that people think I'm crazy. There are actually people that advocate, and I quote, I support right to repair as long as it doesn't mean that the battery is user removable on a phone. Which blows my fucking mind. How does it actually hurt the end consumer? How does it hurt you to be able to replace your own battery? That's insane. Why do you actually want it to be sealed into the device away from you? I don't get it. That seems mental to me. But it would be interesting if 15 years from now, we live in a world where it's like, well, why don't you want to subscribe to the ability to have, I don't know, a better light on your car? Why don't you want to subscribe to the ability to be able to move your seat all the way back on your car rather than halfway? I support the right to ownership as long as it doesn't mean that when I buy my car, I actually have the ability to use all of the steering features without paying them extra. I don't like the idea of people getting conditioned into accepting this. And one of the comments that I made on a video that I did recently, there was one person that was commenting on the state of the industry in general and what things are going to be like. And I said, I don't think that anything is going to change unless people just opt out entirely from buying new technology. So one of the comment that I left on this was, I would understand this, the cell phones with locked bootloaders, bundled TikTok and other software you can't remove, glued-in batteries they won't sell you. Cars that cost $46,000 with extra features you have to pay a monthly subscription fee for that you can't fix. Computers with processors that stop working if you put them in a different motherboard. Microwaves that brick themselves when they connect to Wi-Fi and get a firmware update that makes them think they're a steam oven. I sometimes think the only way out of this is if a great majority of the population just says F this to buying anything new ever again. But I don't see that happening. And I fear that that's the direction that things will go in, where the only way to vote with your wallet is not going to be buying from a different company, but rather just buying nothing at all or opting out of modern technology. If you're a consumer and you want to buy a laptop where the company will give you a schematic, your solution is to buy an Altair. I mean, like, really, I'm not kidding. Your solution is to opt out of modern technology. Framework is an amazing company. They are great people. They have an amazing CEO. They offer to make schematics available to repair shops, not end users. So technically there, if you want to buy a laptop where you can get a schematic for the board to be able to do what I do without piracy, you are voting with your wallet by opting out of owning a modern computer. if you want to buy a modern smartphone where you can get access to a schematic to the board so that, again, the work that Jesse Cruz or Jessa Jones or Mark Schaefer or STS Telecom or any of these other people do on YouTube, if you want that, you're not buying a modern smartphone. You are opting out of owning a modern smartphone because there are no modern smartphones that give you that. We are going to get to a point and I'm afraid, where the only way that you can vote with your wallet to say, I don't want to deal with this not constant, you don't own anything mentality, subscribe to everything mentality, is you simply don't buy anything. Or you buy used things that work, where even if you don't get access to the stuff that you want, you're protesting the company in an indirect way by not giving them money for new sales. If I buy a Samsung S10e used, I have not directly given Samsung money. If I go to a recycling center and there's a broken thing there and I take it home and I fix it, the manufacturer has not made money for me. And I think that the time to vote with our wallet on a lot of these issues has unfortunately passed. And it's not really a question of voting with your wallet. It's simply a question of whether you wish to opt out of owning modern technology entirely. And I don't see people doing that, but I don't see any way to move forward here to undo the damage that's already been done. If any of you have ideas on how to undo the damage that's already been done, I'm all ears. I'd love to hear it. And also, check this out. Finally started making some merchandise for YouTube. You ready? Look at this. This is my mug. You'll own everything and they'll be pissed. This is the world that I want to live in. That is the world that I want to live in. But we'll see. Hopefully. You never know. That's it for today. And as always, hope you learned something. See you all in the next video. Bye now.